everyone. Welcome back to the Just Saiyan Podcast with myself, Kenny, and of course, Kyle Chris. And today we have a very special guest with us, all the way from across the pond, Demian from The Lookout. If you do not recognize that beautiful face,
How
you doing, Demian?
The chef.
Yeah.
How you doing,
Hi,
Demian?
everyone. Yeah. Thanks for having me here. I'm super excited for this podcast.
We're very excited to have you.
Absolutely. We know you, we were kind of talking about it a little bit before the pod, but we know you've been a very busy man today. With doing.
Yeah.
You've been up since. I mean, our time was last night at some point. I think it was like 10 or 11 o'clock our time. I think when you started doing all of your. You and Peter were doing the regionals for Oceania and everything. So, how's that been? I'm sure you're a little exhausted.
Yeah, actually a couple of days before that, Peter messaged me and he's like, "Hey, we have Oceania and Latin America the same day." And I'm like, "Well, we also have Asia as well." So it was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, "Well, we pick one. We see what's left on our schedule." So he's like, "Nah, man, like, I have days off. We can do both." And I'm looking at him like, "Man, do you think we can really do both?" Like, yeah. 3 a.m. We're hopping into the call to test everything. And both of us are just sitting there and looking at each other like okay. Like, maybe not. But luckily, it went fine. I'm operating on an exceptionally high amount of caffeine right now. So, it keeps going.
Yeah.
See, that's where I'm fortunate is that Chris isn't that much of a slave driver to me yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's coming, but we don't record luckily as much as you and Peter do. You guys crush it,
Dude.
Thanks. In our duo, it's actually Peter, one who's pushing me so much. But usually I set up all of the streams, and then he's like, "Hey, but that we have that one thing as well." And I'm like, "Man, like, I can't do it." And then my fiance looks at me. She's also in the Lookout. She looks at me and she's like, "Well, we can send an email." And then I'm like, yeah. And just the team rolls from there, It's like, well, we're going to send to these people, random TOs. We never worked with them. And it's like, yeah, we would love to. It's like, okay, yeah, we're doing it. Yeah.
You guys do. I talk about a lot with our local guys. I have a few. There's a few of our local guys. Shout out to Mitch, who is like upset. I wouldn't say obsessed with you, but he like adores you so much. And we talk about it all the time. I'm like, Demian, I would say you're the hardest. You and the combination of you and Peter, whether it's the actual the live streams or just your content, you probably outdo all of us content-wise. You do so much. It's awesome to watch. It's really motivating. It's also exhausting sometimes because I'm like, I can't. I don't have the time to put out these videos, and he's doing it so
cranking
well.
them out.
And it's awesome. It's just an honor to talk to you, man. So thank you again, obviously, for being on the pod. So I know today we had a very big discussion I want to go over with you. But I do want to I know a little bit because I've watched almost every one of your videos, but I don't know if a lot of the community has gotten into the origin story of Demian and how you got into Dragon Ball, like what set. So if you could give me a little bit of information on that, so we can go maybe take a little bit of a deep dive.
Okay. So, yeah, you're laughing, right? Yeah. Okay.
Chris has that constant smile on his face.
Maybe you should prepare before this. And I'm like, with like 20% of my brain functioning right now, I'm like, I've got this. Anyway, so funny story. It was, when was it, man? Like, I think it was like 2018 or at some point. I moved to Denmark in 2017, and then on one of my earlier trips back to Croatia, I met with one of my best buddies, Ivan. We used to play as kids, we used to play Pokemon like very seriously. And then like we played Versus System and a bunch of other games together. So we're just sitting down drinking some beers, and he's like, "Hey man, like, you know, Dragon Ball has a card game." Okay, yeah, sure. Because he finds, huge shout out to him. He finds the weirdest things. Boy, he's like, you know, Transformers and Power Rangers have card games, and I'm like, what? Okay,
Sure.
okay,
Transformers does have a card game.
So like, I asked him, you know, like, hey, where can I get this? Like, okay, just go to our store. Go buy the, what was it? It was the original Masked Saiyan starter deck.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
set 3. He started about the same time I did.
That's a lot.
So we sit down. Neither one of us ever played this game before, and he's like, "Well, you know, I watched this channel. I watched like these super players online. Like, I think I have the gist." You know, I'm like, "Okay." We have overwhelmed like 5 times in a turn. Like we did, because we were playing Versus System so much, and that's a card game where basically 2 players share the same turn, like combos and everything is completely different from Dragon Ball. We got used to that system. So our way of comboing was like, I combo 5, then he combos 5, then I combo 5, you know, and like it's the weirdest game of Dragon Ball ever. So later on, at some point, we talked about this, and it's like, hey, there's nothing in Europe like, let's make something, you know, like the 5 of us, so like best friends, we know each other from childhood. We were like, hey, let's make something, like let's try to make a scene, and then we'll have people to play with. You know, like that was like the original idea, you know. It was like a couple of us live abroad, and it's like, oh, let's try this. And then it just kind of started from there. You know, it started from there. I was probably the least active member back then. And yeah, we did cool things. We had a website long time ago, and we traveled to like first European invitationals and stuff like that. And yeah, I played the game off and on for a couple of sets. Just like off and on, because I live the furthest away from all of them. And it was before COVID, before webcam even became a thing.
Okay.
And then it was like, it was harder to get into the game when you have no one to play with, basically, you know. Like,
Very true.
and,
That's actually a problem we ran into here for a while, is we only had, like, where Chris and I are located, our nearest locals is what, 30 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, mind you, that's just as recent. Like, when I first started playing, we had a shop that did it, then they quit doing it and made my closest locals a 45-minute drive one way.
Yeah.
So, but trust me, I get that entirely, Damian.
And yeah, basically, I jumped in almost fully. I mean, I jumped in this current period like a year ago. Yeah, I think it was like a year and a half ago, and then I started following all of this very seriously. So, you know, reading goal spoilers and competitive analysis, and that's basically it. Like, yeah, that's kind of the story.
I don't want to go back and, you know, kind of do some spoil for younger Damian with his starter deck. There's a rule book in there.
Yeah, I know. And we were looking at this, and I'm like, we played, I think, like 5 games, and all 5 had like different interactions, because every game it was like, wait a second, you know, like maybe we can do the yeah, it was a period of discovery. And I remember when I went back to Denmark, and he's calling me one day, and I was, what? And he's like, man, we had it all wrong. Like, what do you mean? Like, everything.
Everything.
Like, everything, man. Yeah.
That's how I was too. I think my first game was the same. I think it was the same starter deck. I was playing against somebody, and I went to go. I swung at him. I comboed my whole hand, and then like after the combo, he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna block that attack." And I was like, "Oh, I guess that's how the game works. Like you can just block after you combo." And then coming to realize that's obviously not how it works. So I can understand that. It's yeah, we all have to learn somewhere. Bad rulings and all.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So with that, how did you and Peter, like I mean, I'm sure you guys, you know, are friends in some capacity, but like, how did you guys start doing what it is you guys do now?
Well, first we had like it's funny. Peter and I met in real life only once, like at European finals. Though we've been talking online for quite a while. Basically, we started with these tier lists. That we had like tier list live streams. We play at the same locals at Scrap Games back when I used to play there. When I had more time, but I don't remember what it was. We did a couple of these tier lists. It was very fun. And I think it was actually Nina's idea to ask, like, hey, do you want to do like these other regions? It's like, okay, let's do them. And it was like, hey, you can't do this alone. Like, why don't you like contact, like, ask Peter? And I was like, hey, Peter, like, do you want to do it? It's like, yes. And then see just kind of how they started, you know. Yeah.
Okay. And then it's been how it is now ever since. You guys are sleeping 2-3 hours a day doing 4 different regionals, sometimes on a weekend.
It's funny how that works though, because Chris, that's kind of how this pod started.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not as in-depth of a background as, you know, you and Peter have, Damian, but that's kind of what it came down to. Is Chris and I were talking, and we were mentioning how when Hermit Style quit doing their pod, we're like, this game is really missing a solid podcast. And he's like, we should just do one. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Yeah. I've also known you since I was like 12. So that's like, that's another thing. Yeah, so.
Yeah, his cousin was one of my best friends growing up, so I've known Chris a very long time.
Yeah, unfortunate for you.
Yeah, it really is.
So what was the so kind of, you know, I want to stay on the Damian topic for a minute. So what's your deck? Like, what's the deck that like you're like, okay, I really want to like play this game a lot, or like what's your favorite color? I know it's probably green, but like what's your favorite deck?
Favorite color is definitely green.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I really hate myself, so I play green all the time. But my favorite deck is actually Red Bulma with Gogeta BR engine from BT11. Like, I can play that deck all day. Like, it's hands down my favorite deck in the game.
Okay.
It's not good. It's not good anymore with so many barrier things coming and going into the meta game. Like, if you run into a barrier boss monster, you're just kind of dead in the water at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun.
Would you say that Bulma is your favorite leader overall throughout the whole game, or do you have a specific leader that is just your favorite?
I think Bulma's my favorite leader because I love drawing and restand 2 on Awaken. By far my favorite Awaken condition.
Probably brought you a lot of love with green when we got King Cold, and that was our first green leader to do that in forever.
Yeah, my second favorite deck is King Cold. Like, when you allow me to like restand 2, it's like, yes, please. Please let me do this.
Let me do more stuff on my turn.
Yeah. And with Bulma is like, basically it's a good combination because you activate main to draw 1 and then you restand 2. So basically you get the draw 1, restand 1 plus restand 1 on Awakening, and then you draw 2 more. So that's like,
yeah, Golden Frieza who? Man, like, we can outdraw Golden Frieza. It's fine.
If only Red had the tools Yellow had.
If Green had the tools that Yellow had.
Oh, dear God.
It'd be great.
We're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. So obviously you've watched a lot of competitive Dragon Ball, I would say, probably more than the average person, Damian. So what's something, so obviously like the big topic I wanted to really talk about here is just regional differences. I guess specifically North America and EU. But before we kind of go into that, like, what have you seen like a particular trend in these other regions that you get to commentate, or you get to at least like get the data from? Like, do you see anything like between you and Peter that you guys have discussed that's very unique that kind of makes it stand out?
Well, oh man, there is a lot to say about this. Okay, so I love doing analysis, and I'm building my regional data set. for global and everything, and I look at it very often and talk about it with Peter. There are differences, like pretty big ones. Back in we started commentating and everything back in the last meta game, so info from that is a bit too much skewed in favor of red.
Yeah.
And so because that was everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you dig a bit deeper into them, there are some differences. For example, Asia is the most versatile region when it comes most diverse region when it comes to their leader representations, but it's such a small community over there that a lot of them know each other. So regionals are like big locals sometimes. You know, people come with decks that they want to play. It's usually like, hey, me and my friends were like in top 4, top 8 and stuff. So with them, it's very chill, but you see a lot of cool leaders that you usually don't see because people just show up and they play their favorite decks.
Okay.
Australia is back in the last BT20 meta game. Australia was, I believe, it was heavily yellow. It was more yellow than some other regions. Also, they have amazing players. They have really amazing players. A lot of them from like similar teams. When I look at this data, but it's one of those. I think the easiest way to pinpoint this is Australia and Latin America in comparison to NA and Europe. Like our two regions, NA and Europe, we are more metagame concentrated in either specific colors or specific regions. While Oceania and Latin America are more diverse when it comes to the leader base. Oceania has a lot of rogue decks. Like often you see a lot of rogue decks. But players play them amazingly well. So for these two, it's a bit more difficult to find, like a regional identity. Well, for us is, America is usually mostly blue. Last season, Europe was mostly red. This huge difference between them. These are the ones I would say that they are just interacting with all these players. They're all amazing. They are more. I want to say they're more chilled about this. Because like when I talk with our players and I listen to any players, we have very competitive mindset. And they're just like having a blast. And it's so awesome to see that. Like they're just chilling and playing. What was it? We were just doing the breakdown today. I think that there was like a BT13 Yellow Future Gohan in the top cut for Oceania. Like, where do you see, it's like, yeah, man, like, I enjoy this deck, and I just sit down and have fun with my friends, it's awesome. Like, it's really awesome. But we are more like sit down and, like, analyze and everything is super competitive with us.
Yeah. I would say so. It seems that, from just, like, watching, and, like, I guess, like, there's a group of, I don't remember the team name, so if I don't want to butcher it, but they seem to win a lot of the Oceania regionals. I forgot their name.
From CCG.
Yeah. So they win a lot of Oceania regionals, and it seems to be like maybe like the same, maybe like 3 or 4 people, but they all obviously they seem very, I would say more positive than a lot of what I see in the other regions. And as you said, they definitely seem like they're having a little more fun. You don't really see that a lot, and I would say in North America, a lot of that is. It's hard to come by sometimes.
A lot of that is washed. We did it. You gotta remember, we did an entire episode, Chris, on player toxicity.
Yeah, people are very. It's very cutthroat, and I'm sure some of the EU stuff is like that. Maybe not all of it, because obviously I'm not over there, so I can't really get to see it for myself. But definitely the North American players are very, very toxic, but maybe just as you said, more competitive than a lot of other people are. So
yeah, I've interacted a lot more, mostly because of language barrier. I have interacted more with Oceania player base. They're so amazing. I think that's like they're playing the game in what I believe is the best way to play it. They just sit down and they have fun, man. Like they're super chill, and everyone is enjoying what they're doing. Because of the language barrier, I don't get to interact as much with Latin America players, but I know they're also like just sit down and like have fun. They're not as serious as we are. And we're like, very.
I know they're down there winning regionals with Go Tanks.
Yeah.
Makes me sad.
Surprises me.
Yeah, trust me, I've looked over that guy's list 800 times, and because that's my deck. That is my baby is Go Tanks, and anybody who knows me from my locals will tell you. And it's one of them things I keep looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. I'm like, it has to be because this is best of one, no side. I'm like, there's no way.
Just a good pilot, man. Just a good pilot.
And it has to be the pilot because there's no way in the States that would not have happened.
Yeah, and I would say going into that kind of our big topic is obviously with the difference with that with NA and EU. So I don't know. I don't want to come out and say like what's the better region because my answer might shock people, but
I'll come out. I'll make him say it. Hey Chris, what's the better region?
So before I say that, it definitely seems. I'll go back to just like the last two, I guess, worlds that we've had. One guy won from NA, one guy won from EU. But I think this last world championship being in person, I don't know about for you guys, but it seemed to me that I would take the data from this one a little more, I want to say serious, but a little more precise than I would the last one because it was all webcam.
Yeah.
There's a lot of asterisks, like knowing what people are going to play beforehand, but Philip Tarpini, even Big O, like being prepared for what they knew North American players were going to play, and nobody deferred. Like no one played anything. Everyone's like, we're going to play Crimson, and they got pounded by these two. So I don't know if there's like, if you're in any sort of like, EU discords, Damian, that just talk about Dragon Ball, is there a sense that EU has kind of taken the fold as being the best quote unquote competitive region in Dragon Ball, do you think?
This is like, okay, so this topic alone, man, like this is not like opening poking the bear. This is like pile driving it, man. Like,
Yeah.
Like, okay, sure. So, so looking at the regional difference at this level, and of course, I am going to be slightly biased here because I am from the European region, but just like going and interacting with all of the players is, I think, competitively, at least from what I have seen, I think that, well, how to put this like gently and competitively, it's like, okay, those are regions. Okay, so first there is okay, let's dial it a bit back. Until very recently, NA was the region which had the most coverage, right? So, and since it is the biggest region, we basically have several more prominent players, like more prominent names in the community. Like, like, okay, these are the good players, and they like making the deck profiles and stuff, and this creates this scene where, like, okay, over here it is the most competitive, the most successful, because that's like what you're watching most. Like in the last year, this has changed since we started getting more coverage from Europe and from European scenes. We didn't have a lot of tournaments in Europe. We didn't have as much as we have right now, and even some things for me when I wasn't as knowledgeable came to light after participating at these Discourse discussions events. And I would say that on a broader picture, like when it comes to competitive events, I would say that we have a much higher competitiveness in a way that our players really like if you just jump into like some regionals and watch some of the top tables and stuff. Even if you go into Discord discussion, our guys they really take this seriously and are going to if you go to our events, you are going to encounter someone who knows exactly what your deck wants to do, knows exactly how to prepare against it. Has played this matchup like hundreds of times. Recently, because I've been hosting events in Poland. I'm hosting another one soon in September. I just recently joined their community because Poland has phenomenal players, absolutely phenomenal players. And what I see there is they play all the time. Like every hour you get a couple of notifications like, hey, game, and they're constantly preparing for regional events. It's similar in some other Discord communities. I don't know what's it like in NA. Like the only NA Discord that I'm in is like the Hermit Silo. So
I think that's prominently EU players. It seems like too. I get a lot. I see a lot. I've noticed a lot of people who are in the Hermit. Like I know who is from like North America because I met a few of them, but it's either they're from Canada or they're from EU, and I'm like, okay, so we don't even have a big majority of the people who are active in the community are actually even talking that are from NA in there. So.
And we also have this when I mentioned like prominent players and stuff. We have. I'm not sure. Have I seen this so often in NA results? But we have our better players. We have of course we have Bigo, we have Mikey from Poland, we have Peter Dance, and but we also have. If you look at like top 16, we also have a lot of, let's say maybe eight staples of play when it comes to players. Like, okay, these 8 players, they usually get into top 16. And almost every event, we have a lot of interchanging places, like new players bumping up, going into the top 16, and sometimes even repeating this success. So, it's not like a one-time thing. And that's basically how I feel. It's when I look at some NA lists, often I see similar names here, but it's also probably because of the structure, like of your events. Like for example, I know that you definitely have more real life and convention events than we do. Like Europe doesn't really have real life events. We just do online ones. I know that you're just from the interacting at the big community group on Facebook. I know that your scene is very into going to these live events and hanging out and stuff like that. So I imagine that that's also one of the reasons, because like people are traveling like in groups, in teams and stuff. So you see a lot of these similar players at events and we have like online, and then we have like a whole bunch of players from everywhere, and it's more interchangeable. Yeah.
Okay. Kenny, what's your take on that?
I mean, I have to agree with it. I mean, if you look at, because this is just from US sampling, because obviously I'm not EU, I'm not as in-depth into the scene as, of course, Demian is, that's his region. But if you look at our past regionals, even the live ones, it's always like the same 8 names in top 8. Especially if they show up. For instance, if Jared Lopez shows up, expect him to make top 8. It's a given, It's one of them things. If Robert Reach if Reach shows up, he's probably going to make top 8. That's kind of how the States is your best players are typically your best players.
Yeah.
It's not to say that the US doesn't have a competitive scene, but our hyper competitive players are the hyper competitive players. Whereas with EU, yes, you have your staple players, but you have a bunch of people who were no names, but they pop up and then they keep topping. We don't have that here.
Not as much. It kind of depends on the. I think. It's probably the same reason why. Like, there's not a lot of in-person regionals for EU, but a lot of the regionals in NA, people can't travel to them. Like, people complain about the. I went to the regional in Tennessee, and people complain because they couldn't come from the West Coast. It's too far, so they haven't had any West Coast events out there.
It was the same thing with Madison too.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Madison. Probably would be the same thing when Core TCG has an event in California. If they do, people from the East Coast might not be able to go.
Typical.
Yeah, I think I think if we were to have Worlds right now, I think EU would probably win again.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
And I think a lot of it comes down to because I was just as shocked, I think, as a lot of the North American players when there was not a single North American player in finals. It was 2 EU guys playing against each other. And I know people took that, a lot of people probably wouldn't admit it who were there, but I think they took that really personally. They're like, holy shit, like we thought they thought we're going to play Crimson and no one's going to beat Crimson. And then everyone said, okay, Gamma's a good deck, but we're not going to play Gamma. We're going to play Crimson. It's more value. We get to draw. This is the North American thing. We love blue. And that's what they're going to do. And it didn't work out that way. And then we have Tarpini tapping 7 for a signature Frieza and just blowing these decks out of the water. And it's like watching him play. There was another regional that he did during the Gogeta Sin meta, and he played Majin Vegeta. And there's a thing that we say in our locals about someone getting dog walked, like literally just getting I wouldn't say embarrassed, but like this person's in charge the entire game. Tarpini dogged walk these Gogeta and Sin players, and they might be very good players, and they probably are, but his mastery of of those matchups made Majin Vegeta look like the best deck in the entire game. And if you ask North American players, most of them are like, nah, Trunks Vegeta's better. Golden Frieza's better. No one plays Majin Vegeta. That particular style, the way that he played that deck. And it's like reverse. Like everyone in NA thinks Android 21 is like the greatest deck in the world. And I've heard a lot of EU players say that it's awful. Right? And I don't see a lot of 21 topping in EU. And
where it tops every event in North America.
Right, and I know right now we're in this whole Gohan thing. Like Gohan is the deck that people play, or people are trying to beat. But it seems that there's definitely some regional differences in what we think is good and who's right. That's like the big who has the everyone can have their opinion, but which opinion has better data behind it. And I think right now, if we had that Worlds, if we had a run back of this, I think EU would probably still win, just because, as Damian said, these people you guys are playing, a lot of people are just playing every day. And I see that a little bit here, but I don't see it, as much as, we would like to see it. So.
Yeah, even for our region, we are pretty, how do you call it? I won't say region locked. I think that it's, because we have Europe, and then we have France is a separate region, and then we have Italy as a separate region. This is mostly because when the game started, cards were printed in Italian and in French and English, and then Bandai just separated us by regions. But we also have closed community. I don't want to say closed communities. We have more localized communities. This is mostly also due to language barrier. For example, I know that Spain probably after France has the biggest Dragon Ball community. They have massive events. They have phenomenal players.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've never heard anything out of Spain.
You don't hear much because they are so very localized, basically. It's they don't have their own regionals. They participate at our regionals, but for example, French. Oh my God, man! France was the region which discovered Golden Frieza back in BT19 meta. I believe the first Golden Frieza lists came from France. These guys, oh my God! I love their scene. They make a spectacle. They have so many events. They have a whole bunch of live events. I don't think they even have online, or they have them very rarely. And I love watching their groups. They always travel to these events across the country, and they also take it super serious. So they have the best judges in Europe, probably. French judges are amazing. and like their scene is also like hyper competitive. So we have not only region based, but also in these like localized regions, each of them has their own super competitive community, which it's either official events or smaller events, and then you see craziness when European regionals happen, and then most of us are, unfortunately, I don't think that French players can play at European regionals. I'm not sure because I've never double checked this, but I think that rule still stands
It's
because
because of
we
the
are
cards.
regions.
Oh.
No. This rule was annulled back in 2019. It's just that we are still quote unquote different regions.
Oh, okay.
Even hold on, even if they travel, like say
Um,
you're from
Yeah.
Germany, for example, and you travel to France or vice versa, you can't compete in a different region. Because
you can
Oh,
if you. I don't
okay.
want to like give misinformation because I'm not sure whether or not they can play at our events. But because you have all of these like localized competitive communities, like I said, like Poland has an extremely competitive. Poland has some of the best players in Europe. Same with like Germany, Britain, and like all of these smaller localized hyper competitive communities meet together when we have EU online regionals, and that's where you see like actual craziness. Like it's so it's basically I think like mostly because of language barrier we're separated into like these smaller localized regions, let's call them, and then each has its crazy scene. But yeah,
Okay.
that's how we basically do it.
Yeah, it's weird. Like we have, I don't know what you would say, like our region in NA, Kenny. I don't know what you would what you would call like our type of meta, because like if you look at like Florida kind of like the Florida area sort of has their own.
Oh yeah, no,
like,
across
meta.
the country, different sections have different metas. Like
Yeah.
when I was when our buddy Leo was in the Navy, I went to Virginia to visit him once, and Virginia's meta compared to like just Ohio's meta, way different, and that's 3 states away.
Yeah.
That's an 8-hour drive, and the meta is completely different over there.
Mm-hmm.
And the same varies for up in like New England, the New England area, the Midwest, the West Coast, Southern United States. Like all our regions are just different within the same country.
And Texas is like its own region as well.
Texas is like its own planet,
it's very different there. So would we say like in NA and it seems this way for EU? I don't want to like spoil like because I watched I've been listening to your voice I think from until like last night watching you and Peter doing these streams. So I don't want to like spoil what you guys like the streams and stuff. But it seems like Gohan seems to be like the global favorite deck right now. Obviously you guys made a like a chart of like which decks have been presented, which decks have topped. Does Gohan seem like obviously Gohan is like the majority, but does Gohan seem as impressive as like the Gogeta Sin meta and even before that, like how Gamma and Trunks were sort of like holding onto the meta?
Okay, so how to put this? Okay, if we take results from these list regionals, the ones that we have also casted today, and there was also one in Asia and one in France, and I was just about this. I was talking with a couple of people a few days ago. I checked the data and everything. At this point in time, Gohan won more regional events than either Gogeta or Sin in any meta game, I believe. More than in BT18, more than in BT20 at this point.
Wow.
Not about BT19. He just flat out won more than any of them. I think he has higher top 16 representation than either one of them, but lower than both of them combined. Because Gohan is doing to green what Gogeta and Sin were doing to red. So
Yeah.
you can also look at them as a combined sample because they basically hard carry the color. So if you look at them combined, Gohan is not close. But if you look at them separately, then Gohan has a much higher success than either one of these two. So I think it is a global favorite. Though we did do some preliminary breakdowns for the breakdowns that were gonna come for Oceania and Latin America, and there's not that much Gohan going around. It's still pulling results. At Latin America, I think there were just 8 Gohans. I think 2 made it to the top 4. I'm not sure about top 16. Oceania, I think, had like 1 or 2. I don't think it had a lot in the top 8. So it's no longer. I don't think it's a deck that's in extremely high numbers, because I know that we had events where you would have like 13 Sins, like 18 Gogetas show up at an event, so it's not in such high numbers anymore.
So would you say then that the numbers have, like you said, they have dropped? Would you assume it's just because the shiny new toy syndrome has kind of phased off on it? Because like that was my view on Gohan, is why it was so highly represented. Is one, it was at the time an inexpensive deck, and then 2,
not now.
Not now, because all the green staples went through the roof.
Yeah.
At least in the U.S. And then 2, and this is from someone who plays Gohan, it's not a high skill cap deck. It's not. I mean, if you have a very high skill cap, the deck will reward you every time, but it does not require a high skill cap to pilot that deck successfully. Would you say, like, because it was the new kid on the block, it was the shiny new toy, it was easily accessible, it was easily playable, and now that, the meta has kind of settled a little, maybe that's why the representation has fallen off for it?
Okay, so I would say there is an element. There are multiple things that need to be taken into consideration. Yes, there is the shiny new toy element, especially the last time Green was this good was BT11 with like...
I would say what was King Cold 17?
Cold was 13, I believe. Supreme
that was
right.
Probably the last time then.
Yeah, but even that though, it didn't top that much.
No.
Yeah, it didn't top. Last time it was Majin Vegeta and the original Gotenks. I believe that was BT11.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it has something to do with like A, shiny new toy, B, it's a green deck that's finally good. Like that's something that people have been asking for quite a while now. But it's an easy deck to pilot. I don't think that it's much easier or harder to pilot than like Red Sin, which you just slap and turn cards sideways and then you win. It's kind of simple deck to pilot. But it's a bit harder when you run into mirror matches and stuff. But like against anything else, you just swing. But there is also another factor, and this one concerns, I think, more other regions. They need to really concern NA in Europe, and that is there is a large fall in player representation, just players at events. Because I think I'm gonna have this video out anyway soon. I think before this podcast is out. So I'm just gonna mention it here. I was going over these data and information on like colors and players and stuff. Current metagame, we have Latin America and Oceania in the last 2 events had 50% lower players than in the previous metagame. 50% lower. That's like half of the players aren't showing up at regionals at all. Like Oceania used to have like 80, now it's 40. And Latin America, somewhere similar in number. Europe didn't hit 100 players last time around. So it's also an element of It's an easy deck to pilot. Plus, there are not a lot of people competing. There's not as many people as in the last meta game. So it's easier for this deck to actually win and get higher percentages at some events. It's easier for him to be like in the majority and stuff. The players who show up, not a lot of them also play. I want to believe that just looking at deck lists, that not a lot of them take these current regionals super seriously, as opposed to the previous one. As this has more to do with rewards than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
No one really wants to win, the Paragus or like the Yamcha, and now he's gonna show up and beat us all with Gogeta and Gamma, but I think it has something to do with that as well. So it's simple to pilot, it's easy, it's not super accessible, it's quite expensive, especially here in Europe. I don't know what's it like in NA, but in Europe it's quite expensive.
Here, I'll give you a prime example, Damian.
The deck, there's a lot of, I think it's mainly the Kaioken, yeah, that guy.
That was a $15 card before this deck, the Winter Stamp.
Yeah.
That was at one point $60. It's settled at $40 right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
this was $10 once. Like, just this deck went off and everything in green just shot through the roof.
Yeah,
some of the green players made off like a bandit though.
To be completely objective, it's not an unbeatable deck, but it is at the moment, considering how easy it is to pilot, how consistent it is much stronger than a lot of other stuff in the game. It just flat out is much stronger than some decks. If you run SSG Trunks, for example, like Peter ran SSG Trunks, we also saw SSG Trunks on the stream today. You will, if you don't play in a very specific way against Gohan, you will lose. He will just steamroll you. If you're playing anything red, he's just gonna walk all over you. Like, red is a free game for Gohan. Yellow and blue have ways of fighting it, but for Gohan, whose game plan is pretty similar at every single game, and he's just like, I do this and I win. And if he just does his thing, he wins more often than anything else. So that's kind of the Sin issue. Like, I'm not saying that Gohan is as unhealthy for the game as Sin was. It's easier to fight Gohan. You can beat him more often than you could realistically beat Sin if you're not playing blue. But it's stick to the game plan and then just win most of the time. So sorry.
It seems a little so we're getting close to Gen Con again this year. We got about maybe 2 weeks or so, 2-3 weeks from Gen Con. And this reminds me a lot of when the Red U7 Goku deck was incredibly popular in Realm of the Gods, where it basically ran the entire meta. The deck was not a very difficult deck to pilot. You get to turn 4, you play Vegeta, and you probably win. This deck's kind of the same thing, but instead of your boss monster costing 4, it costs 2. And it's kind of the same thing. It's if people break down the Gohan deck, it's like you have the Vegeta Trunks combo, and you have the 8-drop, and everything else is filler. Everything else, none of the other cards are, I wouldn't say important, but none of them are as impactful as those two particular playlines. Everything else, and obviously like your secret rare choice, like swinging 40k triple or doubles triple strike with if the secret rare, if you play Cell Max, whatever. But like those are the two big combinations, and that's kind of the same thing how it was with U7. It was you played the 8-drop, the Goku 8-drop and the Vegeta, or you played the Vegeta and the counterplay Goku and you just like spam the board a bunch. So it's a similar situation. I'm very interested to see because there's ways. I agree with you, Damian. I don't think Gohan's a oppressive deck. I don't think it's unbeatable. I have beaten that deck a lot in our local scene. I've lost to that deck. Like it's very 50-50, but that deck does not scare me as much as Gogeta did. Not even in the same ballpark. Like it's a very manageable deck, and I hopefully we see something change where someone figures out, or a group of people figure out how to pilot against Gohan better. Kind of like, I hate to keep bringing up this because I'm just a big fan of this guy, but when Tarpini played against the Crimson players at Worlds last year, he didn't swing at them, and they couldn't awaken. Like, those type of play lines is something that the average player wouldn't think of. There's got to be something against Gohan where you can outplay Gohan and out-resource them, and to the point where they can't do what they want to do. Whether it's not charging to 3 for a while, I don't know. Like, if that's it's happened. So I don't know if that's the trick, but I feel like there's going to be something we might see in these next few regionals, hopefully. Definitely at Gen Con, hopefully we see something where we start seeing a shift where Gohan is a big part of the meta, but Gohan is now having to fight to win an event rather than just being Gohan versus Gohan mirrors.
Yeah. You did mention, like, from talking with players, especially today, and from these last streams, you did mention players adapting to fight Gohan, and we are starting to see the results. We are starting to see lines of play which consistently fighting well. And one of these, the one that you have actually mentioned, is don't charge beyond 2 energies. There are decks which can actually just go with 2 energies. I've spoken briefly with Oscar, who just won Latin America with Ep.4, and he faced 2 Gohans.
The yellow one?
The yellow.
Okay.
And just didn't charge after 2 energies. I can do everything in my deck with 2 energies.
Wow.
He can't do Fated Rival. He can't do his boss monster. If you're playing SSG Trunks, like, I know you like this deck. Like, if you play SSG Trunks, you can play a lot of things for free.
Yep.
Or for you don't need a third energy. You just sit there, and eventually Gohan runs out of resources, and he's just like hand filled with cards that he cannot use anymore. Then just slap him. We saw Trunks. Blue Trunks is rising to fight Gohan because Gohan wants to hit you with critical guys, and Trunks Reboot is completely okay with that. So you're taking away a huge advantage from him. So we're seeing more and more answers to these decks. So I think at Gen Con and maybe some future events we will see Gohan starting to drop off. I don't believe that it's a panic situation. I don't believe that, like, we need to ban this deck.
No, absolutely not.
It's very manageable. Though it's gonna depend on the quality of cards that are coming out in the next set. Sorry for talking about this for so long, but, like, if you look at BT19, when Gogeta and Sin were the best decks, nothing in BT19 actually came to fight them. So in BT22, things that are like, okay, we can actually stand up, and then we're gonna see a shift. If not, then yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, nothing with Gohan needs to be touched. That deck it's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with the deck. Please, Bandai, do not touch it. Just let Green have a very good deck that's not toxic for the game. Like, we let Cell Surge run around for so long. And then, like, let this deck be a thing. It's okay. We just have to side our green hate and just pray to God we don't die. But it's a good, it's a very, very good deck. It doesn't need to go anywhere. Bandai just needs to continue to print cards and decks that are equal to Gohan, so that way we're seeing a shift where maybe someone goes like Broly. Like, I know we might not have time to go over Broly, but, like, we just starting to see the reveals for the Broly deck. Broly deck doesn't look awful. Like, I don't know what the deck's supposed to do, but there's a lot of cool cards in the deck, and it's like, if people find that deck fits their playstyle more and they do well with it, maybe people move over to playing Broly or something else, you know. So yeah. Okay. So I don't want to, you know, we're kind of getting close to the time where we normally cut the podcast, just time sake, and you're probably gonna, like, pass out after this. I don't know if you're gonna be doing anything after this.
You worked hard today. You've earned it.
Yeah. So I did have like 2 questions for you, Damian, and I don't know if Kenny, if you had any.
Yes.
So first question is, why does Peter hate North America so much? I need you to answer for him because he's not here to answer for himself. I need an explanation because it's hilarious, but I want to know like why does he hate us so much?
Oh, it's funny because today when we were streaming, I told people like, yeah, I'm gonna go on this podcast. I should just take your voice clips and just make like a random amalgam of answers, and like play it.
A Peter soundbar.
Yeah, but no. I don't think Peter hates you guys. Like I think Peter, like we have mentioned that we have players who, in both regions, we have players who take the game, the competitive aspect of the game, especially like very seriously. We have this in almost every region, but most prominent in Europe and NA. And for I would say until last year, last World Championship, the stigma of like from both of our regions of like us versus them was much bigger and much stronger than it is right now. I hope that we are managing to bridge this gap in team, and I don't think there's any real hatred.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think it's just like players joke a lot. I think it's like joking. I think it's still a bit of joking on this old mindset that we used to have, like poking jokes at each other. But I don't think that there's anything malevolent behind this, like.
Okay, good.
Meanwhile, Peter's at home with maps of the U.S. just going burning them. Like fuck the U.S.
He seems like a nice guy, but it's like I'll always like I'll catch him saying something, and he's like, yeah, it's like North American player. Yep, knew that was gonna happen. So, but shout out to you, Peter. You seem like a nice guy. So
yeah. Please don't flame us, Peter. We mean all good.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you as the fellow green player, Damian. What is the worst green leader to ever exist?
Okay, so the worst green leader to ever exist, okay, to be completely fair, let's not look at anything before, let's say, like set 9.
I'll agree with you. We'll go from set 10 on.
Yeah. Those all there.
Yeah, because all of them there were dog shit. Yeah, I agree.
Except for like if you went before that, it would be Gohan reboot, and that's
yeah.
I mean, not worse. I'm sorry, that's the best one. Never mind.
That's the best one.
I'll be quiet. I'm not the green player.
It's Unison Warrior onwards. Originally, I would think something like very trash, like Green Shield. Like Green Shield is so god awful bad. Like normally that would be my answer. It's like Green Shield, because when you look at anything else, like nothing is as bad as Green Shield was. Like Lord Slug was weird. He wasn't bad, like you have. What did you have? Like Vidal is fine. They're not highly successful deck, but they're not bad. However, there is one which is so astronomically bad, so much worse, and that's from Draft Box, and it is the Green Goku Monkey.
Oh dear God, yes.
By far the worst one ever made. I actually have it. I'm planning on using it in all of my sketches as a green placeholder. That guy is reading it the other day. I was like, I don't get it. I asked Peter this the other day. I was like, what's the idea behind the permanent? He explained it a bit to me, and it still doesn't make sense. It's like, he's all colors. Okay, you can benefit somehow from that. I don't believe that you can, but let's say, for argument's sake, you can use some cards. And then he's like, on the front side, he gains critical if his opponent as a leader is red, blue, yellow, and green. And I'm like, what? What? Like, which leaders are, and I would understand if it said like or, but it's like, no. These, and you gain crit. You're like, okay, sure. So when I awaken, I assume that I gain some benefits, right? But no, when he awakens, he's still all colors. He draws a card on attack. He is 15k, but he loses the critical. Like, he's just like, all colors draw one.
It's a good design. It's a draft box design. It was meant for the mirror matchup.
Yeah,
It was honestly,
it.
yes. It was meant just to be exclusively for how draft box was supposed to work.
Yeah. So just, I think that's the worst one. I think there's nothing that can salvage this. Unless Bandai says, like, like, let's print an entire set with this permanent. And even then it just loses critical, and it's like, I don't know. I think that's the bottom of the barrel. Like, that's really the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, you were on board with me with the chill leader. I also put the new cooler, the meta cooler. The
green
the $2 deck. Yeah, I put that one in my bottom of my list. And if you ask Chris, Go Tanks is in the bottom.
I was gonna put. I was see if I asked the question, I was gonna say, Damian, what is the worst green deck and why is it Go Tanks? I don't like that deck.
You wanted to get me fired up, Damian.
I did. You steered away from the question, so that's good.
Right out of it.
Yeah, I didn't have any other big questions. I hope at some point, I know you and Peter have talked about it, and you guys being able to commentate on North American Regional. I would really like that. I think that'd be really cool. I hope somebody, whether they reach out to you or they allow you guys to do it, it'd be really cool. Or having you guys coming to NA if we have Worlds here again, being able to commentate. I would prefer to have Peter on North American soil talking about how bad our plays are than having some other people commentate not knowing what cards do. Like, it would be so entertaining and so awesome, and then I actually get to meet you guys. It'd be really cool. But yeah.
We're working. I can't understate. I can't overstate either how many times I have tried to get NA events to comment. Like, I've tried so many times to get them, and I hope that one day we will get them. When it comes to the World Championship, wherever it is, I believe, I don't think it's gonna be in Europe, so I'm just gonna count as it's gonna be in America. I would be shocked if it's in Europe. I am planning to come to the World Championship. So, hopefully nothing changes then, because I would love to come. And, at least, worst case, we're gonna meet each other there,
Yeah, I would love to. It'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Bandai, if you're listening,
they're not, but
boys.
they might.
You're not, but get these boys. Get them commentating for us over here in the States.
It'd be great. Yeah, these TOs just need to... It's awful because sometimes I'll watch some of these the events that we have and we have nobody commentating and it's just them showing a screen with the game going on. And I'm like, man, I would really like to hear the soothing sounds of our EU brethren on the back of this.
And when they do commentate, it's always the same three people.
Yeah,
it's
it'd be good. Hopefully, you guys add them, please. It'd be great.
Yes, get on that diversity. Get Europe involved in the North America.
Yeah, please. So,
Peter promises to behave. He promises.
I hope so.
I think that I'm not gonna say who, because honestly I don't even remember, but I think that at one point when I have reached out to one of the heroes, I'm not sure, but I think that I also wrote that Peter promises to behave. The message, hey, can I cast? Peter promises to behave,
That's fantastic. That's okay. It's fair, because Chris has to make the same disclaimer now about me.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put something at the beginning of the video at some point. All of Kenny's opinions are only Kenny's opinions. They do not reflect the podcast, me.
Do not reflect the opinions of Kyle Chris Productions.
Here's his address if you want to send him hate mail. I know where he lives. And he's a mailman, so he's going to deliver to his own house. So it'd be great. Well, Damian, thank you for being on with us, man. Thank you for spending the time to talk with us. I will obviously, for people who don't know who the Lookout is, there will be a link down below. You guys should know who Damian is. He should be in your algorithm.
I would hope.
If he's not, he's gonna be in there eventually. We're gonna spam it in there. But Damian, do you have any last things to say, man, before we let you go?
Well, huge. Oh my God, it's my time to do shoutouts. That's so weird. Okay. So, huge shout out to you guys for having me here, and it was a blast. It was absolutely a blast. Huge shout out to your entire audience and to the NA player base and everyone watching. Like, you guys are awesome. Like, to the entire Dragon Ball Global community. Like, I've been doing this for like a year, and I got to meet so many awesome people, and it's really a life-changing experience. We have the best community in the world. I hope this game never dies. I hope we just make it even bigger. And yeah, guys, please like and subscribe. We're on our way to 3,000 subs. Come on.
Oh man.
And subscribe. Hey, Chris, come on. Man.
Yeah, dude, I've been trying so hard to get 2,000 subs. It's slowly but surely I'm gonna get there. But as long as you're getting subs, I am happy. It makes me happy.
He's gonna start losing subs though, because he started including me.
I'm gonna. Jay wanted to replace you in the last one, so maybe I'll have to have.
He took his business model and went, you know what? Let's go do it the opposite way.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Peter next time, and me and Peter are just gonna talk about EU the whole time. I'm gonna change it. It's gonna be great. Just me and Peter talking.
I believe that's gonna be the most viewed podcast, man. Just like slap a title. Peter talks about NA. Like this.
I will ask him the best questions. It'll be a blast. I might have to do like a censored version, so, like very highly edited on there, but. All right, well, hey, Damian, thank you for joining us, man. And from me and Kenny here at the podcast, we obviously appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. It's you and Peter are awesome. Even just you by yourself, just going over the stuff you go over, you're great. You and Peter are great.
Especially your parody videos. Fantastic. Top tier.
I love it. I actually, before we go, that's actually something I wanted to bring up. Is I took everything was perfect. I'm like, this is the red player. I know people like this at my locals. The blue player, there's like 6 people I can name off the top of my head that at my locals right now who play like that. The black player, there was nothing there. I was so sad. I'm like, you could have got me to just sit there, and I was so defeated when I watched the end of that video. But I almost downvoted. I was like, this is some bullshit.
I saw that, I saw that. I text Chris instantly. I'm like, this would have been an opportunity. Damian could have texted you and just got a video clip of you shuffling a deck by yourself.
By myself. It was so sad. But, yeah.
I had no idea. I sat down like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do for black, man? And I was thinking, looking at my data and who plays black, man? Let's just leave it to that. And then, the regionals before that, like a couple of days before, there were a couple of SSG trunks running around, and I'm just looking at this like, oh, damn, okay, sure. But yeah.
Well, thank you. And for everyone watching, obviously, you guys subscribe to the Lookout channel. Of course, I'll be down in the description below. And like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Later, everyone.
Yeah.